The air over Gaza was still. For the first time in weeks, the city seemed to hold its breath, suspended between hope and dread. For a few precious hours on October 21, 2025, the familiar sounds of conflict faded, the drones were silent, the explosions were gone. The city, scarred by war, was wrapped in an uneasy quiet, as if the buildings themselves were listening for the next sign of trouble. A fragile ceasefire, brokered after weeks of relentless international pressure and marathon negotiations, had finally taken hold. Diplomats from around the world watched anxiously, knowing how easily such truces can unravel. Families emerged from shelters, faces marked by hope and fear. Children clung to their parents, uncertain if it was truly safe to step outside. For many, this was the first time in days they had seen the open sky. They looked to the sky, searching for a sign this peace might last. Every distant sound made hearts race. Every moment of silence felt like a fragile gift. In Washington, former President Donald Trump prepared to claim credit. He saw the ceasefire as a personal victory, a testament to his unique brand of deal-making. He saw this as his moment, a testament to his deal-making. For Trump, this was more than just a diplomatic win. It was a chance to reassert his influence on the world stage. The world held its breath, praying this quiet was a beginning, not just a pause. News outlets, from London to Cairo, broadcast the developments live as millions watched and waited, hoping for a miracle. But peace here is a thin sheet of glass over a chasm of old grievances. Decades of mistrust and pain lurked just beneath the surface, threatening to break through at any moment. Along the border, Israeli soldiers stayed on high alert. Their eyes scanned the horizon, fingers tense on triggers, knowing that any misstep could reignite the violence. In Gaza, Hamas militants watched warily, observing the truce but ready for conflict. Their weapons were never far from reach, their trust in the ceasefire as fragile as the peace itself. The ceasefire agreement was ambiguous, open to interpretation and dispute. Each side saw loopholes, and every clause was a potential flashpoint for renewed fighting. Trump from Mar-a-Lago saw a diplomatic triumph. He was eager to broadcast his role in the peace process, determined to shape the narrative in his favor. He bypassed traditional channels, using his style to force both sides to the table. His approach was unconventional, sometimes abrasive, but undeniably effective in this moment. His team drafted victory posts, peace in the Middle East. They said it couldn't be done. The message was clear. Trump wanted the world to remember who made this possible. For Trump, this was about legacy and relevance. He saw the ceasefire as a chapter in his story, a moment to cement his place in history. On the ground, reality was shifting. People moved with caution, testing the boundaries of this new calm, unsure if it would last. Whispers of trouble, a disturbance near a Rafah checkpoint. Tensions simmered just below the surface as rumors spread quickly through the streets. Claims and counterclaims, sniper fire, provocation. Each side accused the other of breaking the truce, and the world watched as the situation teetered on the edge. These small incidents are the kindling of larger fires. In a place so volatile, even a single spark can ignite a new round of violence. Before sunset, the fragile calm began to fracture. The tension in the air was palpable, as if everyone sensed what was coming. The illusion of peace was about to be shattered. In an instant, the city was plunged back into chaos, and the hope of lasting peace slipped away once more. The incident began in confusion and conflicting accounts. Near the Rafah crossing, the ceasefire met its first test. Israeli sources reported sniper fire from Gaza, wounding a soldier, a breach of the truce. The IDF called it a terrorist attack meant to sabotage peace. Hamas claimed Israeli bulldozers violated the buffer zone, and that civilians were fired upon first. Each side's narrative spread quickly, fueling outrage. International observers couldn't verify either story. The truth was lost in accusation and propaganda. Within an hour, the spark became a flame. The wounded Israeli soldier's image dominated news. Rumors of troop movements spread panic in Gaza. The ceasefire was dead. The only question: how severe would the response be? As news of Rafah and the crumbling ceasefire spread, uncertainty and anxiety gripped people across the globe. In city squares and living rooms, eyes were glued to screens, searching for clarity amid chaos. Headlines flashed urgent updates, and conversations buzzed with speculation about what would happen next. Meanwhile, Trump stepped before the cameras at Mar-a-Lago, seizing the moment to address the world. The stage was set, the flags arranged, and the press waited for his words. He projected unwavering confidence, dismissing mounting reports of violence as nothing more than fake news, a narrative he had used many times before to rally his supporters and discredit his critics. "The ceasefire is holding. It's beautiful," he declared, painting a picture of calm and control, even as chaos unfolded elsewhere. He insisted that both sides truly wanted peace, and that any incident was minor, quickly resolved, and not worth international concern. His words were meant to reassure, to project strength and stability. But Trump wasn't just reporting reality, he was actively trying to create it, shaping perceptions with every sentence, hoping his version would become the accepted truth. Yet, his statement directly contradicted live feeds showing smoke billowing over Gaza, explosions lighting up the night, and the unmistakable signs of renewed conflict. For Trump, admitting the collapse of the ceasefire would mean admitting failure, something he was never willing to do, especially in front of the world's cameras. His words put Netanyahu in a difficult bind. Should he contradict Trump and risk diplomatic fallout, or downplay the attack and risk public outrage at home? For Trump's base, his version of events was the only truth that mattered. They cheered his words, trusting his narrative over the images on their screens. But while he spoke of peace, emergency sirens blared in Israeli cities, war cabinets rushed into urgent meetings, and civilians scrambled for cover as the threat of violence became all too real. Trump's reality distortion was powerful, shaping headlines and public opinion, but it couldn't stop missiles from launching or intercept rockets in the night sky. Around the world, people watched two parallel events unfold: Trump's vision of peace and the harsh reality of Gaza's war, each broadcast in real time. The gulf between rhetoric and reality had never been wider, leaving the world to wonder which version would ultimately shape history. The Israeli response was swift and overwhelming, a show of force that left no doubt about the seriousness of the situation. Troops mobilized under the cover of darkness, their faces tense with anticipation as orders crackled through radios. Within minutes, F-16s tore apart the night sky over Gaza, their engines roaring as they streaked overhead, unleashing a barrage of missiles that illuminated the city below. Operation Iron Shield had begun, its name echoing across newsrooms and military briefings, signaling a new and dangerous phase in the conflict. Airstrikes targeted Hamas infrastructure, command centers, weapons caches, and even the homes of commanders, turning strategic sites into smoldering ruins. Explosions rocked Rafah, fire and smoke billowed into the night, and the fragile calm that once lingered was shattered in an instant. In Gaza's dense neighborhoods, there was no clear front line. Every street, every building, every home was suddenly at risk. Panicked families scrambled for safety that didn't exist, clutching children and belongings as they searched desperately for shelter from the relentless bombardment. Ambulances raced through debris-filled streets. Hospitals, already stretched thin, reported dozens of casualties within hours, their emergency rooms overflowing with the wounded. Power lines were severed, plunging entire districts into darkness, leaving families to huddle in fear as explosions echoed outside. The IDF released videos justifying their actions, claiming precision and necessity, insisting that every strike was carefully calculated. "We will not tolerate violations," an IDF spokesperson declared, vowing to continue operations until their objectives were met. For Gaza's people, military jargon meant little, only terror mattered, as families huddled together, praying for the night to end. Airstrikes soon hit Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and refugee camps, spreading fear and destruction across the territory. The operation was expanding, signaling a punitive campaign that threatened to engulf even more neighborhoods and lives. The illusion of ceasefire was gone, war had returned, and with it, a new chapter of uncertainty and suffering for all caught beneath the red skies. In the digital age, the first casualty of war is truth. As jets struck Gaza, a second war raged online. Israel posted videos of precision strikes, pushing back, and Hamas violates peace. Their narrative, self-defense against terrorism. Pro-Palestinian activists countered with images of destruction, trending, Centre Gaza under attack. Their story, a defenseless population under siege. Social media amplified outrage, deepening polarization. Depending on your feed, you saw two different wars. Nuance vanished. Each side's story hardened. Viral images shaped global opinion and politics. In this war of narratives, victory belonged to whoever controlled the story. The ceasefire's collapse sent shockwaves through global power centers. At the UN, an Emergency Security Council meeting was called. The Secretary-General urged restraint, but the council was paralyzed by division. The US blocked a resolution condemning Israel, creating a diplomatic stalemate. Iran condemned Israel and hinted at regional escalation, threatening a second front. European leaders walked a diplomatic tightrope, affirming Israel's right to self-defense but urging proportionality. Arab states that had normalized ties with Israel faced public anger and political risk. Their criticism was muted, focused on stability. The world watched, but its reactions were fragmented and largely ineffective. For Gaza's people, International statements offered little comfort. The region teetered on the edge of a wider conflict. The diplomatic machinery spun, but the violence continued. Beneath the chaos lay a deeper political game. For Netanyahu, military action was about political survival and projecting strength. A Trump-brokered ceasefire could be seen as weakness. War rallied his base. For Trump, the crisis was a gamble to reclaim relevance and craft the narrative for 2028. He could claim credit for peace or blame others for its failure. The conflict was a proxy for larger rivalries, Iran challenging Israel and the US through Hamas. The US struggled to balance support for Israel with preventing a regional war. Ordinary people paid the price for leaders' ambitions. Decisions in Washington, Jerusalem, and Tehran had lethal consequences in Gaza. Civilians were pawns in a much larger contest for power. The grand strategies of leaders converged on Gaza's crowded streets. The human cost was incalculable. Away from politics, the conflict's reality was written in blood and tears. For Gaza's 2.3 million people, there was no escape. Parents faced impossible choices: hide at home or risk the streets. Children were traumatized by explosions and funerals. Hospitals were overwhelmed, running on dwindling supplies. Doctors worked around the clock, but many arrived too late. Airstrikes destroyed water, power, and food supplies, deepening the crisis. Aid organizations suspended operations for safety. The basics of survival, water, food, medicine, became scarce. The conflict killed not just with bombs, but with hunger and disease. The true cost was measured in grief and despair. Civilians paid the ultimate price, trapped in a cycle of violence not of their making. As dawn broke on October 22nd, Gaza's sky was thick with smoke. The bombing subsided into sporadic strikes, a grim new rhythm. The ceasefire was a bitter memory, another failed promise. Trump's beautiful peace was exposed as illusion. The future looked like endless war, not peace. Israel's operation had no clear endgame. Hamas would likely survive. Ideology hardened. The international community was divided and ineffective. The cycle of violence seemed destined to repeat. The illusion of peace is more dangerous than open conflict. For Gaza's civilians, the brief quiet made the return of violence even more painful. The only certainty smoke on the horizon, and the knowledge that in this place, calm is always fleeting, and war never far away.